When life feels quiet and no one notices your effort, remember, Allah does His greatest work in silence. The unseen moments, the private battles, the late night du'as that only He hears, all of them are shaping something magnificent within you. The silence isn't emptiness, it's divine construction. While you're questioning the stillness, Allah is aligning every detail, setting every step, and preparing every opportunity meant just for you. Allah hides growth in silence because real transformation doesn't need an audience. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly in the dark, and your soul is doing the same. Unfolding, strengthening, and preparing for a flight only faith can fuel. When the world sees nothing, Allah sees your resilience. When no one claps, the angels write your patience as worship. Your silence today is not a pause, it's a promise. The very things you endure quietly are the same things that will one day speak for you. When Allah lifts you, people will call it a miracle, but you'll know it was built in years of quiet trust, whispered du'as, and unseen perseverance. So embrace your silence, because in that stillness, Allah is crafting a story that will echo with success far louder than any words ever could. When the quiet moments become the grounds of greatness, the believer learns that silence is not emptiness. It is the sacred space where Allah shapes the soul. Greatness is never born in comfort or applause. It is formed in the stillness where only you and your Lord meet. The quiet moments that others overlook are the ones Allah uses to build strength unseen by the world. When the heart beats in patience and the tongue whispers dua, the unseen world begins to move in your favor. Allah often writes the most powerful chapters of your story in silence. When everything appears still, He is preparing your rise beneath the surface. The believer who learns to find peace in quiet learns the language of trust. The world values action, but Allah values intention. What you do in silence, your sincerity, your humility, your unseen effort is what builds the foundation of your greatness. The quiet moments are not wasted time, they are divine classrooms. In them, Allah teaches patience, endurance, and emotional maturity. He removes distractions so you can focus on what truly matters, the connection between you and Him. Every sigh that goes unnoticed by people is heard by the one who understands your heart completely. Greatness begins when you learn to be content with Allah's timing. In the quiet, He teaches that success is not in being seen, but in being sincere. He trains your heart to depend on Him fully, stripping away the need for validation. When the world feels distant, it is because Allah wants you closer. The stillness becomes sacred when it is filled with remembrance. When the believer endures hardship without complaint, every second of silence becomes a form of worship. The angels record the patience, the tears, the unspoken words of trust. Nothing is ever lost. The quiet times that seem like pauses are actually seasons of planting, and the harvest that follows is always greater than what you imagined. The quiet moments are where faith is tested and purified. Anyone can believe when life is loud with blessings, but true belief blooms when life is still. In those hours of waiting, Allah polishes your heart so that it reflects His light more purely. Greatness begins when the believer learns to sit in the quiet without fear, knowing that Allah's presence fills the silence. In the quiet, Allah removes what weakens you. He takes away attachments that cloud your clarity, the people who leave, the plans that fail, the paths that close. All of it is His mercy. He is not taking from you. He is preparing you. What you lose in the quiet, you will gain tenfold when He decides to lift you. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, often retreated into solitude to connect with Allah. Those quiet moments in the cave of Hira became the birthplace of revelation. That stillness was not loneliness. It was preparation. In the same way, Allah uses your solitude to plant seeds of strength that will one day grow into purpose. When life slows down, it is Allah's invitation to reflect. The quiet helps you see your flaws, recognize your blessings, and rediscover your purpose. In noise, you might forget your direction. In stillness, you find your compass again. Greatness is not rushed. It is carved slowly in silence and faith. The believer who learns to embrace silence discovers peace that the world cannot give. The quiet becomes a sanctuary where worries melt away. It's in those calm hours that Allah refills the heart with hope. The noise of life may stop your plans, but it cannot stop His decree. Every still moment carries divine precision. In the quiet, Allah teaches you how to listen, not just with ears, but with your soul. You start recognizing His signs in every delay, His wisdom in every test, His love in every closed door. That awareness transforms waiting into worship and pain into purpose. The quiet becomes the soil where gratitude grows. The quiet also humbles you. It reminds you that control belongs to Allah alone. You may plan, but He decides. You may dream, but He perfects. Accepting that truth brings peace deeper than success ever could. The believer who finds comfort in Allah's plan is already walking the path of greatness. When you choose to remain steadfast in silence, Allah sends unseen help. He strengthens your heart in ways that people cannot understand. You may not see the outcome yet, but angels are recording your perseverance as victory. The quiet is never empty for the one who trusts the unseen. In those still seasons, Allah builds your inner world so that no external storm can shake you. Every test, every disappointment, every long wait chisels away pride and replaces it with strength. The quiet moments create a believer who stands firm, not because life is easy, but because faith is unbreakable. The quiet teaches gratitude for small things. The breath you take, the peace after prayer, the light after hardship. When you learn to thank Allah in stillness, you attract barakah in abundance. Greatness begins not when you get more, but when you appreciate what you already have. When Allah sees your patience in private, He rewards you in public. The believer who endures quietly is promised honor beyond imagination. Every hidden struggle, every unspoken pain, every moment of restraint will be transformed into reward. What is done for Allah in silence will echo eternally in His mercy. The quiet moments also prepare you to handle greatness without pride. Success without humility is a test disguised as triumph. That's why Allah refines your character in solitude, so that when He lifts you, you carry gratitude, not arrogance. The higher you rise, the deeper your humility must grow. Faith grows roots in stillness. Without quiet, it cannot anchor. The world rushes to be seen, but Allah calls the believer to slow down and be sincere. The path of greatness is not loud. It's faithful, steady, and patient. Those who wait in quiet remembrance walk with divine companionship. In the quiet, Allah shows you that He was always near. The world's noise may fade, but His presence never does. The believer learns that peace is not found in movement, but in submission. The still heart is the strongest heart because it rests entirely in the will of Allah. When the quiet moments become the grounds of greatness, you stop fearing silence. You begin to see it as the workshop of the soul, where Allah molds your character, tests your trust, and strengthens your spirit. One day when you rise, the world will see only the light, but you will know it was the quiet that made it shine. Patience speaks loudly in the ears of heaven, even when your voice is silent on earth. Every breath held in restraint, every tear withheld in trust, every prayer whispered through pain, all of it reaches Allah long before you speak it. The world may not notice your endurance, but the angels do. They record every quiet act of faith as worship. True patience is not about waiting passively. It is about believing actively that Allah's plan is always perfect, even when it is hidden from your sight. When a believer practices patience, they are in direct conversation with Allah. Without words, their silence says, "I trust you." That unspoken surrender carries a beauty that no complaint can match. It is in patience that the soul learns peace, because patience isn't about stopping the storm. It's about finding calm within it. When you choose patience, heaven listens, and the mercy of Allah begins to unfold in ways unseen. Patience is the believer's armor, soft in nature but strong in impact. It shields you from despair and keeps your heart steady when the world wavers. Allah loves those who remain patient, because patience reflects trust, and trust reflects love. The heart that is patient carries light that cannot be dimmed by hardship. It shines quietly in the eyes of those who continue to believe through tears. Every test of patience is a conversation between you and your Creator. It's as though Allah asks, "Will you trust me even when you can't see the way?" And your silence, your stillness, your surrender answers, "Yes." This dialogue doesn't need sound, it needs sincerity. That's why patience is a language heaven understands better than words, because it speaks from the heart. Patience is not about ignoring pain. It is about transforming it into prayer. When your heart aches, but your tongue still says, "Alhamdulillah," that sound echoes in the unseen. The angels glorify Allah on your behalf, and your patience becomes a song of trust. The believer's silence in hardship is louder in heaven than 1,000 cries on earth. Allah never overlooks the patient. Every time you hold back anger, every time you forgive instead of retaliating, every time you smile through struggle, your name is remembered by the angels. They witness your restraint and write it as victory. The people who appear silent in this world often roar in the next because their patience was heard by the most merciful. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, faced loss, hardship and rejection, yet his patience elevated him beyond comprehension. That patience was not weakness, it was strength anchored in trust. The believer who learns this secret finds freedom, because nothing can break the one who relies entirely on Allah. Patience is the bridge between pain and peace. When patience takes root in your heart, it changes the way you see everything. Delay no longer feels like denial, and hardship no longer feels like punishment. You begin to understand that Allah's timing is mercy, not mystery. The soul that practices patience begins to see blessings where others see burdens. Every hardship you face is a divine opportunity to speak the language of patience. In silence, you prove your faith. In waiting, you polish your soul. And in every second of restraint, you are rising higher in the sight of Allah. The reward for patience is not only in paradise, it's the peace that Allah sends to your heart in the middle of the storm. Patience is the strength of the prophets, the legacy of the righteous, and the path of those who wish to draw near to Allah. It's not a skill you master overnight, but a quality built through surrender and reflection. The more you endure with grace, the closer you get to understanding that everything delayed is being designed perfectly for your good. When you feel that your patience is running thin, remember that Allah is closer to you than the pain you feel. He hears the cry you didn't say, the frustration you didn't release, the heartbreak you didn't show. Every act of patience is witnessed by the one who sees all. Nothing endured for His sake ever goes unrewarded. Patience is a form of worship that requires no sound and no movement. It is done in the heart, hidden from people, but seen by Allah. When you choose not to complain, you are saying, "My trust is with you." And when that trust becomes firm, the blessings that follow are beyond imagination. The patient believer carries within them a serenity that the world cannot steal. Trials may shake their surroundings, but their heart remains anchored in faith. That stillness becomes their strength, their identity, their crown. In the eyes of Allah, the patient are not just survivors, they are heroes of faith. The longer the wait, the greater the reward. Patience multiplies blessings because it purifies your intention. It strips away the need for control and replaces it with reliance. When you stop demanding and start trusting, Allah gives you more than you could ever ask for. His generosity responds to your restraint. Patience also teaches you to see Allah's mercy in the smallest details. The air you breathe, the peace after prayer, the smile after sorrow. All of these are proofs that patience works. Allah never leaves a patient heart empty. He fills it with light, hope, and strength that no hardship can erase. To remain patient is to stay calm in the face of uncertainty, knowing that Allah is writing a story better than your plan. You may not understand the delay, but you trust the author. That trust itself is victory. Every time you choose patience over panic, you declare that your faith is greater than your fear. The angels honor the patient because their endurance glorifies Allah. When you hold on without breaking, your faith becomes a testimony. Your silence becomes a statement louder than complaint. It says to the heavens, "My Lord is enough for me." That sentence alone carries more power than all the words of despair. Patience is also the key that opens the unseen. It turns tests into blessings and wounds into wisdom. Allah loves the believer who endures, not because they are strong, but because they rely on Him completely. When your patience is sincere, Allah Himself becomes your defender, your provider, and your comforter. The patient heart understands that every pain has a purpose. What feels unbearable today becomes the reason for your elevation tomorrow. When Allah delays relief, He is building resilience. When He hides the outcome, He is polishing your faith. Every second you remain patient is a step closer to something extraordinary. Patience speaks loudly in the ears of heaven. It tells the story of your faith without uttering a word. It transforms ordinary waiting into divine worship. And when your patience has fulfilled its purpose, Allah will lift you in ways you never imagined. The world may see silence, but the heavens hear devotion, and that sound never fades. Every hidden tear waters the seeds of tomorrow's joy, for nothing shed in faith ever goes unseen by Allah. Each tear that falls in silence carries a story the angels record, a story of endurance, of love, of trust in the unseen. When your heart breaks but your faith remains, that very pain becomes the soil from which future blessings grow. What you cry for today will bloom as joy tomorrow, for Allah never lets sincere sorrow go unrewarded. Every believer has nights when words fail but tears speak. Those tears are not weakness, they are worship. When you lift your eyes to the sky, unable to find the right words, Allah understands every drop. Each tear shed for His sake washes the heart clean, making space for light to enter. The more sincere the tear, the closer it brings you to Him. Tears have a language that heaven understands. They rise silently, but reach where words cannot, to the throne of the most merciful. When you cry for patience, Allah sends peace. When you cry from gratitude, He multiplies blessings. And when you cry from pain, He promises relief greater than the hurt that caused it. Every tear is seen, heard, and written as a sign of your faith. The believer's tears are not a sign of despair, but of connection. They prove that the heart still feels, still hopes, still believes. When tears fall in sujud, they wash away heaviness the tongue cannot describe. The world may see a moment of sadness, but in truth, it is the soul speaking to its creator. Those who cry before Allah never leave empty-handed. In every hidden tear, there lies a message. I trust you even in my pain. Allah honors those who weep for Him. He turns their sorrow into strength, their weakness into wisdom, and their despair into direction. When your tears fall for the sake of Allah, they are never wasted. They are transformed into mercy, waiting to bloom at the perfect time. Tears are not just emotions, they are mirrors of sincerity. When your eyes fill for the sake of faith, Allah fills your heart with light. He knows when the heart can't hold it anymore, and in that moment of release, He brings healing unseen. Every tear you thought fell unnoticed becomes a reason for your elevation in the hereafter. There is beauty in the believer's quiet cry. The world may never know what you endured, but the heavens do. Angels descend with mercy upon those whose hearts tremble in remembrance. The tear shed in secret carries a fragrance of devotion that Allah loves more than the loudest praise. In those moments, your closeness to Him deepens beyond measure. When life feels unbearable, tears become a form of dua. The believer doesn't always need to speak. Their tears already tell Allah everything. He knows the hurt behind them, the hope within them, and the patience beneath them. Those tears that fall in the darkness of night are seen in the brightness of day when Allah sends relief. Every hardship that makes you weep is planting something greater in your future. Tears soften the heart the way rain softens the soil, preparing it to receive seeds of joy. Without tears, faith becomes dry. With them, it becomes alive. Allah allows you to cry, not to break you, but to cleanse you from within. The believer who sheds tears in difficulty is honored in both worlds. On the day of judgment, those tears will shine like pearls, each one testifying that you trusted when it was hardest too. Allah will raise the heads of those who cried for Him, granting them honor for every drop shed in patience and love. When you cry out of love for Allah, you are fulfilling one of the highest acts of worship. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that among the 7 who will be shaded on the day of judgment is the one who wept in remembrance of Allah. Those tears are not a sign of pain, but a sign of a heart alive with faith. Every hidden tear builds resilience. It teaches you compassion for others, empathy for pain, and gratitude for peace. The one who has cried deeply learns to value joy more sincerely. Allah never tests without reason. Each tear has purpose, and that purpose is always your growth and His nearness. When you wipe your tears and stand again, you are not weaker, you are lighter. You have released what burdened you, and Allah replaces that weight with tranquility. The believer learns that tears are not the end of strength. They are the beginning of clarity. After every cry comes a calmer heart, ready for what's next. The most beautiful tears are those shed in gratitude. When a believer cries out of awe for Allah's mercy, it is a sign that their heart truly knows Him. Those tears carry joy within them, for they are not born from loss, but from realization that Allah has always been there, carrying you through every unseen difficulty. Your tears are a form of investment in your hereafter. Each one falls with pain, but returns with reward. The believer's tears water the seeds of paradise, turning moments of sorrow into gardens of eternal peace. In the unseen world, your patience is already growing into something magnificent. Even the hardest hearts can be softened by tears shed for Allah. They cleanse arrogance, heal guilt, and reconnect you with humility. The believer who allows themselves to cry before Allah finds strength that cannot be taken by the world. Those tears are proof of sincerity, a heart fully awake to its Creator. When life overwhelms you, your tears carry your story to the one who already knows every chapter. Allah doesn't need your words to understand. He looks at your heart and He knows. Every hidden tear says, I still believe. And that belief is what turns pain into power and grief into growth. Tears are temporary, but the lessons they teach are eternal. Each tear sheds light on who you are becoming. More patient, more trusting, more peaceful. The believer understands that what breaks them today will bless them tomorrow. Every hidden cry is a step closer to Allah's mercy. The tears you cry in private are never forgotten. They are stored with your Lord as treasures of sincerity. On the day you meet Him, those same tears will stand as witnesses, testifying to your faith when words could not. Allah will turn every hidden tear into light that guides you toward eternal joy. Every hidden tear waters the seeds of tomorrow's joy. The pain that made you weep will one day make you smile. The same eyes that once cried in darkness will shine in gratitude when Allah reveals the wisdom behind it all. No tear shed for Him is ever lost. It becomes the rain that nurtures your destiny. Allah builds giants in seasons no one sees. The world looks for success in noise and attention, but Allah builds true strength in silence and obscurity. He shapes His chosen servants away from the spotlight in trials that only they and He know. While others celebrate what is seen, Allah is perfecting what is hidden. Every unseen struggle, every quiet test, every private tear is a tool in His divine craftsmanship, sculpting a believer into a giant of faith. Giants are not built overnight. They are refined through patience, polished through hardship, and strengthened through solitude. When Allah hides you, He is working on what no one else can build. Your heart. He removes distractions, humbles your pride, and deepens your sincerity. The growth that happens in private cannot be measured, but it prepares you for responsibilities far greater than your own desires. When Allah builds giants, He begins by breaking illusions. He removes the false sense of control, the dependence on people, and the pride in worldly success. In their place, He plants humility, reliance, and unwavering trust. It is only when the believer stands alone before Allah that they realize they were never truly alone. That realization is the foundation of spiritual greatness. The unseen seasons of your life are divine workshops. While the world sees nothing happening, Allah is sharpening your faith. He tests your patience through delay, your endurance through difficulty, and your devotion through silence. Those who stay steadfast in hidden trials rise far above those who only worship in ease. Giants are built when the heart remains grateful even in the dark. The prophets were shaped in solitude long before they led nations. Prophet Yusuf was prepared in the silence of a prison. Prophet Musa found strength in exile. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, found revelation in the stillness of Hira. Their greatness was born away from the crowd in the quiet moments where faith met discipline. That is how Allah builds His chosen ones, unseen, uncelebrated, but unshakable. The believer's private pain becomes their public power. Every disappointment becomes training. Every loss becomes redirection. Every unanswered dua becomes elevation. Allah never wastes effort. When He delays, it is to build capacity. When He hides, it is to refine purity. The greater the test, the stronger the soul He is preparing. When Allah builds you in private, He strips away everything that does not belong to your destiny. People may leave, opportunities may fade, and plans may fail, but each removal is divine pruning. He is cutting away the unnecessary so that only the fruitful remains. The tree that grows deep roots in silence will one day bear fruit for the world to see. Greatness without grounding collapses. That is why Allah builds your roots before your eyes. If the heart is not ready, blessings become burdens. But if the heart is trained through patience and hardship, every blessing becomes a tool of gratitude. Allah's unseen seasons are not delays, they are construction sites for destiny. In hidden seasons, Allah teaches lessons no book can teach. You learn to pray differently, not for what you want, but for what you're meant for. You stop rushing answers and start seeking wisdom. You stop needing to be seen and start longing to be understood by Him alone. These lessons create spiritual giants, people whose strength is built on sincerity, not validation. When life feels silent, Allah is whispering strength into your soul. You may not hear Him, but He is near. The tears you shed in secret are watering the seeds of your next chapter. The patience you hold when no one praises you is earning reward only the angels record. Every small act of perseverance in the unseen becomes part of the foundation Allah is building beneath your feet. Giants of faith are not those who never fell, but those who rose every time with Allah's name on their lips. They learned to carry pain without complaint, to love without expectation, and to hope without guarantee. Their strength is not loud, it's spiritual. It's the kind that humbles the soul yet inspires the world. In the unseen, Allah removes the need to prove yourself. You stop chasing validation and start seeking purpose. You realize that being hidden is not rejection, it's protection. The believer who learns contentment in anonymity is the one Allah trusts with visibility later. When you are content in private, Allah honors you in public. The seasons no one sees are sacred because they test sincerity. It's easy to show faith when everyone's watching, but only true hearts remain faithful in silence. Allah builds giants by testing who they are when no one claps, when no one comforts, when no one understands. The believer who still prays, still hopes, still thanks, that is the one Allah raises highest. Hidden seasons teach you how to depend solely on Allah. When every door closes, you learn that He is the only door that never shuts. That intimacy is the secret of all strength. Giants are not those who escape pain, but those who find peace within it. Their calm in chaos becomes their mark of faith. When Allah builds giants, He teaches them through patience. You cannot lead without learning to wait. The delays are divine classrooms where you learn humility, empathy, and reliance. By the time Allah elevates you, your heart is trained to serve, not seek glory. That is how true greatness is born, through submission, not ambition. The unseen season is where your character is tested. It's easy to appear strong when life is kind, but hidden pain reveals your true faith. The believer who holds on to Allah, even in silence, is writing their story of spiritual excellence. When they finally emerge, their presence carries peace because it was forged through hardship. When Allah builds you, He allows life to humble you before He honors you. The rejection you felt, the loss you endured, the prayers that seemed unanswered, all of it was part of His perfect plan. He was teaching you to seek Him more than outcomes. Giants are not those who got what they wanted. They are those who trusted even when they didn't. Every unseen test has a divine timeline. The believer's job is not to understand the timing, but to trust the author. The longer Allah keeps you in silence, the stronger the purpose He's preparing you for. He is not only building what you will do, He is building who you must become. When Allah builds giants, He protects their peace before their platform. He teaches them to rest in prayer, not pressure. He replaces their fear with faith and their doubts with dua. By the time they rise, their hearts are unshakable because their strength no longer depends on circumstances, only on Him. The unseen season also teaches gratitude. When you have less, you appreciate more. When you are unseen, you learn humility. When you are overlooked, you discover that Allah's gaze is the only one that matters. That shift in perspective transforms waiting into worship and isolation into intimacy with the divine. Every hidden season is full of divine activity. The believer only sees delay, but Allah is weaving destiny. He is arranging people, timing, and circumstances to meet perfectly. When the right moment comes, everything will unfold so smoothly that you will know it was never random and it was written. The strength you gain in silence becomes the faith you share in public. Giants are not those who rise easily, but those who rise faithfully. When Allah finally reveals you, the world will see the strength, but only you will know the story. That is the beauty of divine preparation. The pain that built you becomes the proof that He was with you all along. The seasons no one sees are where your voice learns to echo in dua, your heart learns to rest in remembrance, and your soul learns to walk with trust. Greatness that begins in silence always ends in light. What you build with Allah in private will one day inspire many, because sincerity carries an energy that never fades. Allah builds giants quietly. He works in the background of your life, molding, correcting, and strengthening you until you become who He destined you to be. The world might never understand your journey, but Allah does. And when the time comes for your rise, it will not be a surprise. It will be a revelation of what He was creating all along. So if you feel hidden, know that you are being built. If you feel unseen, know that heaven is watching. The same silence that feels heavy today is the soil of your tomorrow's greatness. When Allah builds giants, He does it in seasons no one sees, because true strength is not made for attention, but for eternity. Faith grows strongest in the shadows of surrender, because it is in surrender that the believer truly discovers who they are before Allah. When you stop fighting what you cannot control, your heart finally finds rest in His plan. Faith is not proven by what you gain, but by what you're willing to let go of for His sake. The shadows of surrender are not places of loss. They are places of refinement where ego melts and trust begins to bloom. Allah trains your heart through surrender. He allows hardship to teach humility and loss to strengthen reliance. When you surrender, you are not giving up. You are handing over the pen to the one who writes your story better than you ever could. That act of faith transforms fear into peace, because the believer understands that Allah never takes without giving something greater in return. Surrender is the language of true believers. It's what distinguishes faith from mere belief. Anyone can say, I trust Allah, but surrender proves it. It's the quiet acceptance when plans fail, the calm patience when doors close, and the unwavering gratitude even when the outcome hurts. That is where faith becomes unbreakable. In the unseen, where your heart chooses Allah over understanding. Faith doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in confusion, in waiting, in pain, when you have no choice but to say, Ya Allah, I trust you. Those are the shadows of surrender, where the soul learns stillness. Allah hides wisdom behind what you call delay, and strength behind what you call loss. Every time you surrender, He replaces fear with clarity and emptiness with purpose. When Allah loves a believer, He doesn't always make life easy, He makes their faith deep. The trials that push you to surrender are not punishments, but invitations to draw nearer. When you bow to His will, He lifts your spirit. When you release your control, He gives you peace. Faith grows when the heart stops resisting and starts accepting. The shadows of surrender are where Allah purifies your love. You begin to love Him not for what He gives, but for who He is. You stop measuring His mercy by outcomes and start recognizing it in every breath. This maturity of faith doesn't come from study or speech. It comes from breaking and rebuilding under His gaze. Surrender teaches you to stop chasing answers and start embracing wisdom. You realize that every unanswered prayer was answered differently, in ways that saved your soul. Faith grows when you stop demanding signs and start seeing every experience as a sign. The believer's peace begins the day they stop questioning Allah's timing. The shadow is not darkness, it's protection. Allah hides you there to teach reliance. If He exposed you to blessings too soon, they might destroy you. So He keeps you hidden until your faith can hold the weight of His favor. The believer who learns patience in the shadows walks in the light with humility. When you surrender, you learn that strength is not in resistance but in acceptance. The strongest hearts are those that say Alhamdulillah through tears. They know that Allah's wisdom is bigger than their vision. What looks like an ending to the world is in truth a beginning only Allah can see. Faith grows strongest when you stop arguing with destiny. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that nothing befalls a believer except what is written for them, and in that truth lies peace. You can exhaust yourself trying to control outcomes, or you can find serenity in trusting that every chapter unfolds exactly as it must. Surrender doesn't make life easier, it makes your heart stronger. You start walking with calmness, no longer chasing what isn't meant for you. You stop fearing tomorrow because you know who owns it. The believer who surrenders learns that losing what they wanted can be the greatest mercy Allah ever gave. In the shadows of surrender, prayer becomes intimate. You no longer speak to Allah just for help. You speak because you need His nearness. Every sujood becomes a release. Every dua becomes a conversation. And every tear becomes a testimony of trust. When you surrender, worship transforms from duty to love. Faith is not built by knowing the future, but by trusting the one who holds it. Allah keeps certain things hidden so that your heart can grow dependent on Him alone. The unseen is not meant to scare you. It's meant to teach you that guidance comes step by step. That is how faith matures, mixed in walking without seeing, yet believing completely. Surrender removes the burden of control. It frees you from the illusion that everything depends on your effort. You still strive, but with peace in knowing that outcomes belong to Allah. This balance between action and acceptance is the beauty of Islam, tying your camel and trusting your Lord. The believer who surrenders learns patience with grace. They no longer see delay as rejection, but as divine redirection. They stop begging for doors to open and start thanking Allah for the ones that closed. This level of faith brings peace even in chaos, because the soul knows that every step is guided. When life becomes uncertain, surrender becomes your anchor. You stop sinking in fear because your trust rests on solid ground. The promise that Allah never forsakes the patient. Faith in surrender is not passive. It's active obedience that whispers, I will keep walking even when I don't understand. The shadows of surrender teach compassion. Once you've tasted the sweetness of patience, you become gentle with others. You no longer judge their silence or their struggle because you've walked through your own. Giants of faith are born from hearts that have wept privately but remained grateful publicly. When you surrender, you see that every fall had meaning. Every heartbreak carried a lesson. Every setback birthed resilience. Every loss opened space for new blessings. What felt like breaking was actually building. Faith is knowing that Allah never subtracts without the intention to multiply. The shadows teach you to find beauty in simplicity. You start valuing peace over praise, sincerity over status, faith over fame. The world loses its grip because you've seen what truly matters. The calm that comes when your heart says, I am content with what Allah has chosen. The believer who surrenders no longer fears change. They know that every shift is mercy in disguise. What Allah takes away, He replaces with something better. Maybe not immediately, but always perfectly. This confidence allows faith to breathe even in the darkest nights. In surrender, you rediscover yourself. You realize that what Allah wanted for you was never less than what you wanted. It was simply better. You begin to see trials as trust and silence as mercy. The shadows become your place of strength, not sorrow. Faith that grows in surrender cannot be shaken by loss or shaken by doubt. It stands firm like a mountain because its foundation is divine love. The believer learns that true courage is not fighting destiny, but walking through it hand in hand with Allah. The shadows also teach gratitude for the unseen. You begin to thank Allah for what didn't happen. The doors He closed, the harm He blocked, the mistakes He prevented. Your heart grows lighter because it trusts that everything withheld was protection, not punishment. When Allah sees your heart at peace with His decree, He rewards you with contentment that no wealth can buy. The believer who accepts His will lives with a calm that the world cannot comprehend. That serenity is the fruit of surrender and the silent victory of faith. Faith grows strongest in the shadows of surrender because it's there that belief turns into conviction. You stop needing proof because you felt His mercy firsthand. You stop fearing what's next because you know who plans it. The shadows were never meant to bury you. They were meant to build you into light. The stillness that shapes a soul meant to soar is one of the most sacred gifts Allah gives to His servants. When life quiets down, when everything slows, and when it feels like nothing is moving, that is where Allah begins His most profound work. Stillness is not stagnation, it is preparation. It is the phase where your heart learns to listen, your spirit learns to rest, and your faith learns to breathe again. In stillness, Allah teaches you what motion could never reveal. When the noise of the world fades, you begin to hear the whispers of your soul and the quiet reminders of your Lord. Every delay, every pause, every waiting period is filled with divine purpose. It is Allah softening your heart so that when you rise again, you rise with wisdom, not just strength. The stillness that surrounds you is not emptiness, it is space for transformation. Allah removes distractions to make room for clarity. He slows your pace to strengthen your direction. The believer who learns to find peace in stillness discovers that silence is not absence but attention, the attention of the Almighty to your growth. When Allah stills your life, it is not because you have stopped moving, it is because He is redirecting your wings. Before a bird soars high, it must first learn balance on the branch. In the same way, Allah trains your heart in quiet seasons so you can soar without fear when the time comes. The stillness is your classroom of patience. In the stillness, your prayers deepen. When the rush ends, your dua becomes more sincere, more deliberate, more heartfelt. The believer who prays in stillness learns to appreciate presence over progress. That is where faith grows roots. When you no longer rush Allah's answers but trust His timing completely. Stillness teaches you what constant activity cannot. That worth is not measured by productivity but by proximity to Allah. The believer who is still with Allah is more powerful than the one who moves without Him. Stillness becomes a sacred pause where faith is refueled and the soul is reminded of its real purpose, to find peace through remembrance. The world celebrates noise and motion, but Allah values stillness and reflection. He uses pauses to polish your soul. When you feel left behind, He is refining your direction. The believer who stays patient in stillness will soon realize that every delay was a redirection towards something greater than they imagined. The stillness that shapes your soul also exposes your inner world. It reveals what you've been avoiding, what you've been clinging to, and what you truly trust. Allah allows the noise to fade so that you can finally hear what your heart has been saying. Stillness isn't punishment, it's honesty. It shows you where your faith really stands. Every still moment has a lesson written within it. When you sit with your pain instead of running from it, you find Allah's mercy in the middle of it. He calms your heart, not by changing your situation immediately, but by changing your perspective first. Stillness allows that transformation to happen. The believer who learns to be still is the one who learns to fly higher. Just as the archer pulls back the arrow before release, Allah pulls you back into stillness before launching you into success. That tension is necessary. It strengthens your faith and sharpens your aim. What feels like a setback is often divine setup. In stillness, the soul learns the rhythm of patience. You stop rushing to fix everything and begin trusting that Allah is fixing it for you. You stop trying to prove yourself and start aligning yourself with His will. That's when peace enters. When you realize that surrender is the highest form of strength. Stillness reveals the beauty of presence. You start noticing the sunrise again, the calm after prayer, the comfort in quiet gratitude. These small things are reminders that Allah is near even when the world feels distant. The believer who cherishes stillness carries peace wherever they go, because they have learned that tranquility is not found in things, but in the remembrance of the giver. When Allah places you in stillness, He is giving you time to heal. The wounds of the heart cannot close in chaos. They need quiet, reflection, and prayer. The still soul heals deeply because it no longer fights reality. It embraces Allah's mercy in it. Healing is not in rushing forward, but in resting in His will. Stillness is the moment between what was and what will be, a sacred space for growth. It's the time when Allah whispers, "Be patient, I am still working." You may not see progress, but every still day adds to your strength. The believer who learns this no longer fears silence. They seek it as a sign of Allah's closeness. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would retreat into solitude to connect with Allah. His moments of stillness were the foundations of revelation. That shows us that silence is not the absence of purpose. It's the environment in which divine guidance grows. Stillness becomes sacred when filled with remembrance and reflection. In the stillness, Allah humbles you gently. He slows down your world so you can realign your soul. He removes the need for speed and replaces it with the need for sincerity. When life stops being a race, it becomes a journey of remembrance. That's where peace begins, when your pace matches your purpose. The stillness also teaches detachment. It loosens your grip on things that were never meant to stay. It helps you realize that peace is not found in having more, but in needing less. The believer who detaches from worldly rush begins to attach to eternal calm. That balance is what makes faith soar. In stillness, your gratitude deepens. You stop thanking Allah only for outcomes and start thanking Him for moments. You see His mercy, not just in victories, but in pauses. You understand that every delay was protection and every silence was love. Gratitude grows in the soil of stillness. Stillness purifies intention. When you can't move, you examine why you want to. You begin to distinguish between what serves your ego and what serves your soul. Allah uses stillness to align your heart with your purpose so that when you finally move again, your steps carry light, not pride. When you master stillness, you discover the beauty of balance. You no longer chase every opportunity or fear every pause. You learn to trust that what's meant for you will find you, not because you stood still, but because you stood firm in faith. That confidence is the true freedom stillness gives. In the still seasons, Allah builds endurance. You learn that not every battle requires movement. Some require patience. You discover that peace is not about escaping difficulty, but facing it with calmness. Stillness shapes the soul that refuses to panic and instead whispers, Allah is with me. Stillness teaches empathy. When you've sat with your pain, you become gentler with others. You understand that every heart has its silent battles. You stop judging and start praying for those around you. The believer who grows in stillness becomes a source of peace for others. When you emerge from stillness, you are not the same person who entered it. The confusion turns to clarity, the fear turns to faith, and the silence turns to purpose. Allah doesn't leave you in stillness forever. He only keeps you there until your wings are ready. The stillness that shapes your soul is the reason you will soar later with grace. It grounds you before lifting you. It empties you before filling you. What Allah does in stillness lasts far longer than what the world builds in speed. Stillness is His way of preparing you to rise without arrogance and walk with humility. So when life stands still, do not rush to escape. Sit in that peace. Pray, reflect. Remember that stillness is not a pause in your journey. It is part of it. Allah is building within you the strength to soar higher than you ever imagined. The wings of faith are formed in the stillness of surrender. When no one applauds, the angels record, because Allah never lets sincerity go unnoticed. The world may remain silent while you give your best, but the heavens are never quiet about your effort. Every hidden act of kindness, every silent struggle, and every tear of patience is seen, written, and cherished by the one who rewards beyond measure. When no one claps for you, Allah commands the angels to do so in ways unseen. True believers do not live for applause. They live for acceptance, the acceptance of their Lord. People may forget your goodness, but Allah never does. The intention behind your action matters far more than the noise that follows it. What you do quietly for His sake carries more weight than what the world praises loudly. When you act sincerely, even if no one sees, the angels write it down as a light in your record. Your effort might disappear from people's memory, but it remains eternal in the divine ledger. Allah promises that not an atom's weight of good is lost. The hands that serve silently are held higher in the sight of the Almighty than those that seek recognition. The believer learns that applause fades, but reward remains. The cheers of people echo briefly, but the remembrance of Allah endures forever. When you learn to serve without being seen, you have understood the essence of ikhlas, sincerity. That sincerity turns ordinary actions into worship and hidden effort into eternal reward. Every act unseen by people is magnified by Allah. When you forgive without being asked, give without being thanked, or help without being noticed, your deeds are lifted to the heavens. The angels witness your patience, record your sacrifice, and preserve your name among those honored for their faith. That is where true success lies, in being remembered by heaven. When the world overlooks your good, Allah multiplies it. He hides your effort not to diminish it, but to purify it. Recognition from people may satisfy the ego, but recognition from Allah satisfies the soul. He protects your reward by concealing your effort, ensuring it remains free from pride and corruption. The believer's quiet resilience echoes louder in the unseen than any public achievement. When you continue doing good despite being ignored, you are proving that your faith is not tied to validation. The angels stand as witnesses to that silent strength, writing every act as proof of your sincerity. When no one applauds, the angels record every unseen act of gratitude. Every alhamdulillah whispered in hardship is documented. Every prayer prayed when tired, every smile forced through pain, every wrong you ignored, all of it is preserved. What is hidden from people is precious to Allah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that Allah loves the servant who remembers Him quietly, whose heart trembles in solitude. Those are the souls whose sincerity shines brightest in the unseen. Their deeds may never trend in the world, but their light will shine eternally in the hereafter. The world often forgets those who serve silently, but the angels never stop writing. The teacher who inspires one heart, the parent who sacrifices daily, the believer who prays for others in secret, all are known by name to the angels. Each act of hidden good builds palaces of light in the hereafter. When you live for Allah's approval, you stop measuring your value by recognition. You no longer need applause because your peace comes from knowing that your deeds have already reached the sky. The heart that works for Allah alone carries dignity that no amount of attention can buy. Every unseen sacrifice is worth more than 1,000 empty praises. When you work in silence, your sincerity remains pure. The angels record with precision, not just what you did, but why you did it. Even the intention that never became action is rewarded if it was made for His sake. When no one notices your struggle, Allah does. He watches your effort, your restraint, your sincerity. He knows the nights you cried and the mornings you rose despite exhaustion. While the world is silent, the angels are busy writing your story of faith and endurance. True greatness is not in being seen, it's in being steadfast when unseen. Allah hides some of His most beloved servants from the world to protect them from pride. Their reward is not in reputation, but in remembrance. Remembrance written by the angels in scrolls that will one day testify to their devotion. When no one appreciates you, keep doing good. The angels are recording every detail. Allah's justice never misses what people overlook. The quiet dua you make for someone, the act of charity no one saw, the patience no one praised, each one is being multiplied beyond imagination. In silence, sincerity grows. The believer learns to work for Allah alone, trusting that the unseen record is more real than public recognition. You may not have applause in this world, but you are earning a standing ovation in the next, when your book of deeds is opened and the angels bear witness to your perseverance. When you serve without reward, you are training your heart to rely on Allah's appreciation alone. This is the highest form of worship, doing good when no one is watching, giving without expectation, loving without return. The angels record these moments as treasures that will shine brighter than gold on the day of judgment. Every unspoken apology, every secret act of kindness, every hidden good intention becomes light in your record. The believer doesn't need to be seen because they know Allah sees all. The angels record with love and their ink is divine mercy. Nothing pure ever goes unnoticed in the sight of your Lord. When no one claps, keep building. Allah's recognition is worth more than the approval of thousands. Your quiet consistency is more powerful than any public success. The angels are not recording your results, they are recording your efforts. An effort done sincerely is already victory. Even the smallest good deed is magnified by Allah. A smile, a kind word, a hidden dua, the angels write them all. The believer who does good unseen is like a seed planted deep in the soil. It may be invisible now, but one day it will grow into something magnificent by Allah's will. When you are tired of being unappreciated, remember that Allah's book is never incomplete. Every struggle is written, every act of good is secured, every drop of patience is preserved. You may be forgotten by people, but you are remembered by the angels, and that is enough. The reward of sincerity is that it frees you from expectation. You stop living for likes, praise, or acknowledgement. You start working for a smile from your Lord. That shift changes everything. The unseen becomes sweeter than the spotlight, and peace replaces the need for applause. When the world is silent, heaven is not. The angels write with joy every time you choose faith over frustration. Each silent act of goodness echoes across eternity. What feels small to you is monumental to the one who knows your heart. On the day of judgment, when books are opened, the quiet believers will stand in awe as they see pages filled with deeds they forgot. Deeds recorded in moments of sincerity when no one else cared. Those records will be their crown, their proof that Allah saw what others did not. When no one applauds, the angels record. And when Allah calls your name in the gathering of eternity, the reward of your hidden faith will shine brighter than any spotlight this world could ever offer. Keep going quietly. Heaven is listening even when the world is not. From whispers of pain to echoes of purpose, that is how Allah transforms your story. The cries that once came from a broken heart are never wasted. They are the foundation of your strength. Every pain that humbled you was polishing your soul for something higher. The whisper you made in sujood, thinking it was unheard, was already echoing in the heavens, shaping a future that would heal what once hurt. Allah never lets a believer's pain end in emptiness. What you thought was the end was, in truth, the beginning of a deeper chapter. The tears, the patience, the confusion, all of it was divine training. He was preparing your heart to handle blessings you once prayed for but weren't yet ready to carry. Every ache had an assignment, every delay a lesson. Pain is not proof that Allah has left you, it is proof that He is refining you. He allows hardship not to punish but to polish. The whisper of your heart in those dark nights becomes the very reason light enters your days later. The believer learns that the hardest doers produce the sweetest destinies. When Allah loves you, He allows trials that bring you back to Him. The pain that silenced your laughter once will one day give meaning to your joy. Every whisper of despair was recorded by the angels, and every sigh of faith was answered with mercy. The pain you endured in silence is the bridge to your purpose. The transformation from pain to purpose doesn't happen overnight. It begins quietly, in the nights you spent praying through tears, in the patience you showed when others gave up. Allah was listening when no one else was, and while you thought nothing was changing, everything was being rearranged in your favor. Your pain was never a detour, it was direction. Allah was steering you away from what would break you further and toward what would strengthen you. The believer who learns to trust in pain learns the deepest form of faith, the kind that believes in unseen goodness even when life feels unfair. The whispers of pain you once tried to hide will one day become your testimony. When Allah lifts you, others will see strength, but you will know it was the struggle that built it. What broke you became your teacher. What silenced you became your guide. Allah's plan was never to leave you there, but to raise you from there. Pain teaches what ease cannot. It reveals who you are and who Allah has always been to you. In the whisper of surrender, your heart finds clarity. You begin to see that the path that hurt the most was also the path that purified you the most. The deeper the pain, the greater the transformation. Allah's timing is flawless. The same pain that made you question will later make you grateful. Every unanswered dua was answered differently, not in your time, but in His wisdom. The believer learns that delay is not denial, it is divine design. What you thought was withheld was being perfected. Your pain has a voice and heaven hears it. Allah knows the weight behind every tear and the strength behind every act of patience. Nothing endured for His sake disappears. When you cry quietly, the angels record it loudly. What you whisper in weakness echoes in eternity as worship. Every whisper of pain carries potential. Allah turns pain into power, sorrow into strength, loss into lesson. The believer's heart, when surrendered, becomes a vessel of purpose. Through hardship, you learn compassion. Through waiting, you learn wisdom. The pain becomes sacred when it brings you closer to your Lord. The story of your life is not written in comfort, but in courage. Allah uses pain to rewrite your direction, to move you from what was to what can be. When you stop asking, why me, and start saying, guide me, the purpose begins to unfold. The whisper of pain becomes the echo of gratitude. The greatest souls are those who trusted Allah most when life hurt the deepest. They learned to turn whispers into worship. The Prophet Ayub cried in pain yet never lost hope. His patience became his crown. The believer who follows that path learns that faith is not about escaping pain but enduring it beautifully. When Allah delays relief, He is creating depth within you. What you learn in pain cannot be taught in ease. The believer's heart expands through surrender, allowing it to hold more mercy, more empathy, more strength. The delay becomes a doorway to maturity. Pain purifies the heart from attachment. It strips away illusions and reminds you that peace comes only from Allah. When the world falls silent, your soul begins to listen. You realize that your worth was never tied to what you lost, but to the one who remains. In every whisper of pain is an invitation to draw nearer. Allah hears before you speak, understands before you explain, and heals before you realize it. His timing may confuse the mind, but always comforts the heart in hindsight. Every closed door was saving you from something unseen. When you surrender your pain to Allah, it transforms into purpose. The same situation that once broke you now builds others through your story. Allah does not waste the wounds of the believer. He turns them into wisdom that blesses hearts beyond your own. Faith matures when you stop asking for an easier path and start asking for stronger faith. Pain is the soil where resilience grows. It roots your soul in sincerity and makes your prayers real. The whispers that once came from weakness become echoes of strength. Allah's perfect timing teaches that healing is not immediate but inevitable. The believer's task is not to rush recovery, but to remain faithful through it. In due time, every hurt finds meaning and every hardship reveals mercy. Allah never delays what is meant for you. He only prepares you for it. The whispers of pain refine your character. They teach you humility before blessings and gratitude after storms. When Allah rebuilds you, He removes pride and replaces it with peace. That transformation is not loud, but lasting, the kind that radiates calm wherever you go. Pain gives birth to perspective. You begin to see life differently. not as random events, but as chapters in divine order. Every heartbreak you faced was positioning you closer to your purpose. What once felt like loss now looks like alignment. When Allah writes your story, even pain serves a role. Every delay, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was an act of love disguised as hardship. The believer learns to say, if it wasn't for that pain, I would have never found this peace. That is the echo of purpose. From the whispers of pain to the echoes of purpose, that is the journey of faith. Allah takes your tears and turns them into light. Your waiting and turns it into wisdom. He never wastes the struggle of a heart that trusts Him. What you thought was breaking you was, in truth, shaping you. One day, you will look back and see that every painful whisper led you exactly where you were meant to be. The timing that once frustrated you will humble you with its perfection. Allah never rushed your story. He refined it. His plan was always working, even in the silence. When your whispers become echoes of purpose, you will realize that Allah was never distant. He was deliberate. His mercy was in every pause, His wisdom in every tear, and His love in every delay. From pain to peace, from waiting to winning, everything happened by Allah's perfect timing. When your journey feels heavy and your whispers turn into silence, remember, Allah has already written the ending, and it is more beautiful than your imagination. The seasons of waiting were never wasted. They were the soil where your strength grew. Every unseen struggle, every quiet dua, every tear you thought fell unnoticed has been building your tomorrow. What you called delay was actually design. A plan crafted by the most merciful to elevate you through patience. You are not behind, you are being refined. The lessons you learned in pain are the tools you will use in purpose. The stillness that once felt unbearable will soon make sense when you see what Allah was preparing for you. When the world hears your story, they will see triumph, but you will know it was mercy disguised as waiting. So walk forward with faith. Don't rush the pages that Allah is still writing. The same Lord who heard your whispers will make sure your echoes reach beyond what you dreamed. His timing is never late. It is precise, perfect, and full of wisdom. From pain to purpose, from silence to success, your story is unfolding exactly as Allah planned.